Hey everyone, in this video I'm just going to quickly show you my setup of my home server that I recently got and where I'm at now, because initially all I've really shown you is me kind of setting it up and playing around with it and then briefly installing Proxmox, but now I want to show you the setup that I've got running and the new RAM that I've added and just how I'm using Proxmox. So let's have a look at the server and then we'll go from there. So this is my Elitron home server. You might have seen the other video where I actually just first got it and I just kind of just had a look around and showed that the new drives and whatnot that I put in. So what I'm thinking is, let's just have a quick look. If you haven't seen it before, I'll just quickly show you inside. And I've also just upgraded the RAM. That's the only thing different from the other video. And I'll just also show you the setup now that I've got running as well. Because initially I think I just have Debian installed on this, but now I'm running Proxmox. So I just want to show you and take you through that setup as well. So let's just have a quick look inside this, just so you can see. The top actually comes off quite nicely, which is awesome. So yeah, like I mentioned before, I've got the two drives in here, the two SSDs, and there's also, we pull this back here and we have a look, you can see that I've got the NVMe SSD in there, which is the 500 gig, and I have a nice block of RAM now. So 64 gig of RAM in this bad boy now, so it's awesome for running Proxmox essentially, and a bunch of VMs. So all the specs again, I'll just have a link to that in the description, but this setup has been doing actually really quite well, and yeah, I'll show you through the Proxmox setup of what I have up and running, and then yeah, so I really want to get this powered back on because this is actually running my blog and everything, so I should probably get the server up and running again. So this is my Proxmox setup. So I can just take you through what I have kind of up and running. And because when I think during my Proxmox video, I was still trying to figure out how I actually wanted to run this. And when I actually first got my server and I did the video on the server, I actually had no idea really what I was going to do with the server either. I thought I was just going to run it as an independent, Debian on it, and that was it. But no, with Proxmox, now able to split up with a bunch of VMs. So let's just start at the start with my main Elitron VM here. So this is essentially what in the video where I was talking about the server when I first got it, this is essentially what the purpose was going to be. It's a place where I run my website and my Docker containers and all of that stuff. But I've just able to take a little slice of the hardware and go, cool, here's the VM for that. And now I still have so much more flexibility to run other things. So I have the Elitron NFS share here. So this is just a VM that's dedicated with an NFS share for the home network. I just able to put that somewhere so it doesn't really get touched, and that works really well. And it also means that when I'm playing around with things like Swarm and that, I've also got a NFS share that I can use for testing as well. So it's really good. It's always handy to just have a network share laying around. So yeah, that's what that NFS one is there for. I've got the Elitron Windows 11, and that's just a Windows 11 instance I have, which is just a VM that I just use for testing Windows stuff. I do have a dedicated Windows PC here, but it's more for gaming, and I don't really want to break it. With this Windows 11 one, I can take snapshots and just break stuff. So yeah, it works really well. Again, I just like I mentioned a little bit before, I've got my Docker Swarm instance. This is just where I like to play around with Swarm, break stuff, learn stuff. Works really well. And then I have a Linux Mint VM. So this is more for just playing around with Linux stuff, with a GUI and just getting a feel for it and making sure that I'm just staying up to date and my knowledge is fresh with Linux stuff as well. I used to use Linux all the time, and then I went to Mac OS. And now I kind of just use Mac all the time, but yeah, I want to make sure that I stay fluent with Linux, so hence why I like to have that there. So let's dive in, and I'll show you the Elitron VM. So we're in the Elitron VM now. I've SSH into it, and if I just do like a docker ps, you can see I'm just running some Docker containers on here. I'm running my website, which is this Ghost. So this is the Techdox website with its database. And I'm running an Uptime Kuma, done a video on that. If you're keen to check it out, I'll have a link to it. I'm running Portainer. Portainer pretty much manages a lot of my containers, and if you want to check out Portainer, I've got videos of that as well. I need to make a more recent one at some point. And my Cloudflare tunnel. Again, all of the links to this stuff will be in the description if you're keen to check it out. This is just pretty much how I expose all of my containers without having to port forward or anything like that. And I can put it behind single sign-on, which is awesome. So that's my Elitron Cloud. And if I have a look at the usage, you can see here that I've given it 16 gig of RAM, and I've given it four cores. Yep, that's right. And it doesn't even really need it. It's just working so well, but I've given it that much because this is the main VM, right? This is where I will be running my services. So I need this to be beefy and I need it to work well. So that's what it does, and that's the Elitron VM. Now the NFS, I don't really think I need to go into that too much, but I can just show you that if I quickly quit out of this by doing F10, and then I do an ls on the mount, and then I think it's just NFS share, enter. I have two directories here, which is just for the home network and little folders where you can just chuck stuff. That VM is purely dedicated to NFS share, like I said. I won't worry about starting any of these ones. But then I've got the Elitron Mint, and I can connect to this using No Machine. This is just my way to be able to actually connect to it. And I can just use it and it works. No Machine, the reason I use No Machine is because it works so well and there's hardly any input lag. And it's just my way to stay up to date with everything that's happening. It seems, there's not too much input lag. There's just like a little bit, but it runs well. And when I'm typing and, and using it, I don't really notice too much input lag or anything like that. So yeah, it works really well. There we go. So yeah, I just have this VM here just for, dedicated usage of playing around with it and learning, staying up to scratch with Linux and whatnot. And Linux Mint is just a solid little distro, so I really like it. And then I've got my storage as well. So the local, which is just dedicated to, well, this is the NVMe drive, which is where I can store some backups. I also upload the ISO images here, the ISO images for my VMs and whatever I want to play around with. I have the local LVM. So this here is, I believe this is the storage for the actual Elitron node itself. So that's what that's used for. And then I've got SSD storage. So this is the main storage for the virtual machines that I have, and this is where their disks are stored. And that's pretty much it. And then I have the SSD ZFS, and this is dedicated to the NFS share for the Elitron NFS. So yeah, that's pretty much my setup. It's been working really well. Really like Proxmox. It's just, when I first installed it, I thought it was going to be a lot harder than what it was, but yeah, it's not too bad. There's still a lot more I can do, so I'm constantly learning. But yeah, that's pretty much my setup at the moment, and I'm keen to, and I can. The other great thing for using this with self-hosting is that now I can set up, whenever I need to test ISO images, I don't need to try find some hardware or wipe a Raspberry Pi or anything. I just spin up a VM with the ISO of whatever it is that I'm wanting to test. So yeah, it works really well. I'm very pleased with Proxmox and how it's been working. But yeah, that's the video. That was just going through my setup of my home server now. That I'm running Proxmox on it, and this setup just works really well, especially for self-hosting, right? I don't need to worry about other dedicated hardware. I can now leave my Raspberry Pis and my Zimmer board and all of that stuff to actual dedicated testing and playing around and all of that cool stuff. So yeah, again, I'm really happy with the setup, and if you're keen to understand any of the specs and all of my setup, I'll have everything in the description below. I hope you enjoyed this video of just me showing you my setup, and I'm keen to hear about your setups and how you're running things, and yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.